So, are you still doing jujitsu, by the way?
Oh yeah,
Still doing jujitsu?
twice a day.
That's awesome. So how long you been doing jujitsu? Because I know, so we mentioned the karate school. So me and Denny met many years ago. What was the first school I met you at? I'm trying to think of, because you've been doing,
I don't know if I met you when at Lupe's. Was it something to do with Lupe, or did you have
yeah,
something to do with Charles?
with Charles, yeah, Charles Dudley
It
first.
was
Yeah,
Charles. I think it was a Charles. Maybe is where I met you.
Charles, yeah. And then after that, Lupe, of course, with that other big building that you had,
Yeah.
there, and you were doing kickboxing. Now, I didn't know, I guess I didn't know what was his name. The guy that was teaching jujitsu that you were learning from, Kareem?
Karun.
Karoon.
Yeah.
He was a black belt.
Yeah. He had just gotten his black belt back then, or he was about to get it. Karun and I started jujitsu back in like 1995, 96 ish. Um, he had started a little bit before me. He and a lot of Karun and me and Jesse Elder and all these people were all real good friends. And we went over to a friend of ours house to watch UFC. I think it might have been UFC 2. They go, "Hey, you got to come watch this thing." We're like, "What is it?" "It's these fights, man. You can do anything you want." I was like, "No way." And we went in. I
Punching the
mean,
balls.
they were punching him in the groin. They were headbutts. It was awesome. And so anyway, Kroon and I became like friends right away, and I was promoting competitions like kickboxing and stuff like that. I had a taekwondo school back in the day,
Yeah.
and I told Kroon, I said, "Hey, there's got to be a way we can do this here in town legally. And so we got together the next day or a couple days later, and we went out and bought like headgear, pads, all this stuff, and we set up a video camera. And I still have the tape out in the garage somewhere, VHS, and we just filmed ourselves beating the crap out of each other. It's mostly him beating me up. He
Yeah.
was better than I was. And then we came up with these rules, and we just went to nightclubs and just said, "Hey, we've got these fights we want to put on. What's your weakest night?" And they'd say, "Oh, Tuesday," and we'd say, "We get the door, you get the bar." They're like, "Oh, okay." And so we started
Man.
putting these fights on, and we were like, I'm the guy that did that in San Antonio before everybody did,
Well, so like,
and
was it
we
in a
opened up.
ring or cage? Was it in a cage
No,
or
it was
like
on the dance floor.
a dance floor?
Yeah, it was on the dance floor. If you look up, go on YouTube and look up San Antonio sneakers MMA.
Oh, I remember sneakers on Parent Vital, right?
Yeah, and so that's
Yeah.
where we'd have most of them. And so there's some on YouTube right now. One of our big tournaments was there. But anyway, and we opened up at the same time, we opened up the East West Grappling Club, and it was behind Planet K on Austin Highway. There's a little
Yeah.
strip center back there. And we started, we had videos, and we would go to seminars and stuff like that. And the Machados, I think, were in Dallas, so they were the nearest ones. So people would go up there and then come back with what they'd learned. And that's kind of how it went. And then Karun he moved to Houston. He got a job in Houston and took off, and I quit. I was like,
You quit jujitsu. Yeah.
I just we shut the club down because we didn't want to pay rent anymore, and he moved, and so I just didn't do anything anymore. And he
Yeah.
came back like 2 years later, and he had started training under a black belt down there, Pedro Alberto, private lessons, and he came back as a blue belt. And so he invited me over to a friend of ours. I don't know if you ever remember Mike Payne, but
No, no.
he said, "Hey, come over to Mike's studio, and I want to show you some stuff." And so I showed up over there, and we did one round, like a 5 minute round, and he tapped me out like 6 times.
Gee.
And the last time we ever rolled before he moved, we rolled for like 30 minutes and nobody won. He used to dominate me pretty well, but nobody
Yeah.
won that one. And he tapped me out, I think, 6 times in 5 minutes, and I quit. So I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore because I was competitive.
Yeah.
And then I would come back in and do it again. And then I opened up a studio in 2000, and I brought Karun over, and he subleased some space for me. So I had everywhere I went, Karun would follow, and I'd have a jujitsu program, but it was always late at night. And I was always there from like 7 o'clock in the morning. They'd start at like 8:30, and I was like, "Man, I don't want to stay. And
Yeah.
so it took me 10 years to get a blue belt. And
Yeah.
I
It
got my
took,
blue belt in like '06 or '08. I don't remember exactly. And then I quit again. And they all told Karun, I told you if you gave him a blue belt, he was going to quit, you know. And
well,
I
did
didn't
you
do
quit
anything again.
did you just quit just because, or did you have injuries or anything?
No, I just quit because I was just like wasn't dedicated to it. I had my studio was running all day long, and it's a lot of mental aspect to jujitsu, you know.
Oh
And
yeah.
I ended up, not doing anything for like 8 years, I think it was. And I'd shut my kickboxing studio down 10 years ago when Noah was born. And so I was looking for a place just to hit bags, and the UFC gym was going to open over there on Brook Hollow. And
That's I
and
remember.
so I went into their little office they had rented out before they even opened up, and they told me, "Hey, if you sign up, it's $50 a month right now. Price will never go up, and you can do anything you want." And I was like, "Oh yeah!" And so I
Yeah,
signed
dude.
up just to go in and hit the bags. And I
Sure.
went in, and Bobby Southworth was teaching there, and I knew Bobby, and he kept trying to get me. He said, "Come on in and do the jujitsu," and I was like, "No, I don't want to do that. Why not?" I go, because I said, "I'll tell you what, I'll do the no gi class." I go, "Why don't you do the gi?" Because I'm a blue belt, and I haven't done this like 8 years. I look stupid. He goes, "Just do the gi," and then I said, "No, well, okay, I'll do it if I can start over as a white belt." And he goes, "No, you're going to start as a blue belt." And I'm glad he did, because I did it, and then I got it back pretty quick, and then I realized that I was a student again, and just fell in love with it again, and I was there every single day for 5 years. I was there 5 6 days a week, and then UFC gym shut down for COVID, and then Ohana came in and took it over, and I wandered into Ohana like when they were setting it up, and
Yeah.
I'd met Jason before, and I said, "Hey, you remember me?" And he looked, and I said, "From Rollins." He goes, "Oh yeah," we started talking. He goes, "Yeah, come on by," and I went in, and uh, immediately felt like the most welcoming place you could ever imagine, for
Yeah.
especially for a gym that had over 600 members,
Sure.
and I've been there for 3 years now, and I train there twice a day, Monday through
And you're a
twice
brown
a day,
belt.
Monday through Thursday, and then on Friday, and then once on Friday. And I
You're
take the
brown
weekends
belt.
off now.
You're brown belt right now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. No, it's interesting that you mentioned about being frustrated with being tapped out. Um, I remember when I first started jujitsu, I wasn't frustrated at all by being I was getting tapped out over and over again. It's normal. But I wasn't frustrated about that. What frustrated me was being once we started grappling within, I mean, it was probably like 3 minutes, I was gassed out. And then I think continued rolling, and maybe I couldn't, it was like maybe we went 10 minutes, I don't know. And I felt like I was gonna throw up. It was so horrible, but what pissed me off about it was I've always been a long distance runner, prided myself on my cardio, and then here I was just freaking gassed out. I felt my body shaking. I felt like I'm gonna
Different
throw up.
game.
Yeah, just weak as hell. So the being tapped out didn't bother me, but just it was miserable. It was a miserable feeling, and being smothered,
Who
because
are
you
you
have these
training with?
guys. Well, I started with so I had the same thing, long journey, but mine has been more the reasons I've had to stop her from injuries. Okay. So the first one, I was actually at Helsing Gracie down like mainland, and it was a
Yeah.
long, long drive for me. Real cool guy, Josh Lauber, I think, right?
Uh-huh.
Super nice guy, but it was just a long distance. So one of my buddies there was a brown belt in judo, right? And he was a badass in jujitsu. I think maybe he's a brown belt in jujitsu as well. And so he's like, well, the Alamo Judo is closer, much closer to you. That's where I train. Come on over there. And so I go train there. I think I'm training a month and a half, and I get freaking, it's a Saturday morning. I get thrown head first into the mat, bro. I mean, just, I can't remember what kind of throw, but whipped me into the ground. And I try to tough it out. And then, I felt like my body's all jacked up. And then Monday rolls around. All of a sudden, I felt like this electricity going up my skull like spiders and going down my right arm. And I stopped and I said, oh shit, I'm jacked up, bro. There's something wrong. And so I tell my wife, she's upset. And so she takes me to the emergency room. I had a contusion to my entire spine and
Wow.
bruised. The doctor said you're luckily it's not bleeding. He said a lot of times football players will have it happen when they bleed. um and so for like a year and a half, I couldn't lift weights over 10 pounds, couldn't do anything. I was in extreme pain. So it took me a while to even get back in shape. And then I think it was maybe like 4 years later, probably, um, I begged my wife to let me go back to jujitsu. She was not wanting me to go back. And so I went back to Mahasenki.
Uh-huh.
You know, Mahasenki, yeah, right across the road from Ohana. And so I trained with him until blue belt, and he's amazing, awesome, and then the pandemic happened, and I was gonna go back, but prices went up and stuff, so that kind of changed things. But I had injury after injury there too. I rolled with some guys that were way too big for me, like, probably like 260 pounds, 275, jacked up my back again. And then so as you know, I was training at Ohana with you. And what's it been? I think it's been like a year now. I had to stop again because I had a purple belt do a neck crank on me, and it messed me
Which
up.
one? Who was that?
I don't remember his name. He's a cool guy, but he just cranks through stuff. Arm bars too. Just he doesn't give you a chance. And so it really messed me up for like 3 months. Sleeping was no good. I was just in pure pain. So
I was gonna go talk to him. Is why.
yeah, right. Like seriously. And I think that's just his style. I'll tell you off the camera who it was, but I don't know. I don't remember his name. He's a cool guy, um, but so then recently I told my wife, like the past month, I was like, okay, I'm going back, and she's like, oh, she's not having it. So I don't know. I want to go back so bad, but
You have there's how old are you now?
41. I was born in 81. So when you said you graduated in 80, I was like,
Yeah,
bro,
I graduated in 82.
or
Yeah,
82.
yeah. There's a really cool Gracie breakdown, and it's a video. You can watch it on YouTube, and it's how to roll after 40.
Oh, really? Okay. I'll check that
And
out.
it really goes in, and it really will change it really goes over a lot of really cool stuff.
Mhm.
um Two of the things that really helped me a lot were uh they have these thing called Boyd's belts, and there was this guy that used to train with them. His name was Boyd, and he was like 60 years old, and he was a small guy. He was like 5'6", 5'7", like 130 pound, 150 pound. I don't remember exactly what he was, but he was a black belt, and he was rolling one day, and he came in the office, and he was really upset, and they were like, what's the matter? And he had rolled with a blue belt, and he was upset that he couldn't beat him. And so who'd you roll with? And he said, oh, I rolled with Josh, whatever his name was. And they look out there, and this Josh is like 22 years old. He's like 6'1", 6'2", 220-pound
Stacked.
athlete.
Yeah.
And they're like, you're not going
Yeah.
to beat that guy, And
Yeah.
so they came up with called Boyd's belts. And every 10 years is a belt, and every 20 pounds is a belt. So if someone outweighs you by 20 pounds, it's like they're a belt above.
That makes sense.
If someone is 10 years younger than you, it's like they're a belt above.
Yeah.
And you really have to roll that way. You really have to understand that, because I'm the oldest, and there's only you know that I train with on a regular basis. There's only two guys that are older than me, and the next person is probably 10 years younger.
Mm.
There's nobody. Most of them are 90% of the people I roll with are 30,
Yeah.
25, and I'm rolling with guys that are 28 years old that weigh 210 pounds,
Yeah.
stuff like that. And they're good blue belts, good purple belts, and I can survive with a lot of them, most of them. Some of them I
But
can't even survive with.
that weight
But I
advantage.
don't. You have to understand that you're not going to beat those people,
Mhm.
and when you realize that, you realize it's okay to tap.
Yeah.
And you also have to learn who to roll with and who not to roll with. And I make a joke of it, but I walk into these big classes sometimes, and I start walking around the room. I go, I'm not rolling with you. 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 And I'm not
Yeah.
rolling with you. And they know I'm serious.
Yes.
And they're good friends of mine. They're joking, but I'm like, I'm not rolling with you guys today, because
Yeah.
they're beasts. And then sometimes they'll come in, and I'll go, okay, guys, today's the day. And I roll with all of them,
Yeah.
or I'll roll with whoever the beasts are, because I do that to keep my game up and to see where I
Sure.
am, and out of respect for them too. It's like, okay, come on. And they
Yeah.
know that I don't want to roll with them because they're good, and
Yeah.
and I don't want to get beat up. And so if you make it a game like that, uh, then it's not so
Takes away.
bad.
aggression or something if someone's
Yeah, it's
protecting.
not like I'm being a dick and you're a dick. I don't want to roll with you.
Yeah,
It's like no, I am not rolling. And then every once in a while there'll be some big giant guy come in, and I'll go, I'm not rolling with that guy. I'll tell Tommy,
yeah.
do not put me with that guy. You know,
Well,
and
and that's
do
the
what?
mistake I made at Maha. That's one of the times I jacked up my back again. This guy, no shit, he's I think he told me he's like 275 or something. Super nice guy, and he's gonna see this, I'm sure, no, because he's on my Facebook. Really nice guy. But bro, the weight difference is insane. And he just stacked me one day. And my back's already had so many problems. I was like, I told him after that, and he was kind of mad at me at first because I said, no, bro, I cannot roll with you anymore. You're just too big.
You
It's
just
just
I have to go uh when I have to roll with somebody like that. I just know how to defend myself, and I play defense and I tap. They'll get to
yeah,
a certain point, and I go, good job,
yeah.
and that's it. And most of them know me, and most of them calm down when they come. They know a lot of them will match your aggression. If they're going hard and you start going hard back, they'll go hard.
He'll go more. Yeah,
They'll
absolutely.
go more. It's like I let them get them out, and I let them try and beat me there. And I'm really good at defending myself on the
Dude,
bottom.
you have great defense. You have great defense. I was actually, so I don't know if you saw, I rolled with Dennis and trained with him over at his house the other day.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah. And so we were talking about because he did the armbar defense that you do. And I was like, oh, bro, I was like, Denny's so good at that armbar defense, that like little scoop that you do or whatever.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
First time I've seen that.
So anyway, you have to realize that number one, who to roll with. You have to
Yeah.
realize that there is that size does matter, age does matter. It took me till I was in my early 50s before I started going, okay, I'm too old for this.
Yeah.
I'm too old to try to compete with that guy.
Oh,
I
yeah.
really thought that I could match with this guy.
Because in your head,
Yeah,
you're
and there's guys in there that are they're just animals that are just I have no business even being. And
sure.
luckily I make friends with all these guys and I learn from them. But there was no way I would ever even I don't even want to spar with them. They're that good. And the other one is you have to learn to ride the roller coaster because it goes up and down, and the valleys are sometimes you just get down and you're just like, I suck, I can't get any better, why am I losing all the time, or oh, I'm hurt, or whatever it happens to be. And then all of a sudden it goes up, and then all of a sudden you're beating people and you're like, yeah, I get it now, I get it. And then all of a sudden it drops down like a
Back
roller
down.
coaster, and it goes back down. You have to understand the roller coaster, and you have to know how to ride. You have to realize that it is going to go back up, and sometimes it goes, and sometimes it just stays down, and you're like, this sucks. And then all of a sudden you're like, okay, I get it now. Okay, there it is. That's what it was, you know. And then and then it drops down again, that's why people quit, because they ride this roller coaster, goes down here, and then they go back up, and then it goes down. They go, I quit.
Yeah.
They don't like the valleys. They don't like that. It's such a humbling thing. You don't realize that when we go in there, every time we roll, it's to the death.
Oh, yeah.
It really
Absolutely.
is. It's to
Absolutely.
the death, or to the someone gets maimed. It's you're either gonna get something's gonna get broken, or you're gonna die
Yeah.
if you
And
don't tap.
that's why it's so like it's meditative. It's stress relieving because you're put in the worst position. And then so you go into, out into the real world.
Yeah.
And, there's nothing that's going to scare you.
Well,
Uh,
that, and you get in, and a lot of people will talk about this. You could have the worst problems in the world driving up to the gym, but when you start walking in the door, the only thing that starts filling your
there's
head is jujitsu.
yeah,
It's like, okay, so and so's here. Oh, what was that armbar I was going to do? And then when you're rolling with somebody and they're trying to kill you, and you're not thinking about anything else.
no.
You're thinking about, how am I going to survive this roll?
Hmm.
And then sometimes when you leave jujitsu, you don't even think about your problems again until you get halfway home and go, oh, yeah, I got that problem that I got to deal with,
Yeah.
whatever it is. So there's a trick to rolling when you're older. They say Helio Gracie used to come in when he was like 95 years old,
Mhm.
and he'd come in the studio and he'd grab somebody, and he'd lay down and he'd say, mount me. And they'd get on top. He goes, okay, try to tap me. And he'd sit there and he'd do this for
Get
five
fed, get
minutes.
fed,
And
get
then he'd
fed.
go, okay, thank you. And he'd get up, and for him, he won. I'm
Yeah.
95 years old. You couldn't tap me out, you know?
That's cool. Well, I've seen those videos where he's literally in his 90s and still rolling with his grandsons and stuff, and it's the coolest thing, you know.
Karun actually went to Brazil years ago, and he was riding around with Pedro, and they went to Helio's house, and Helio
Oh
was outside, and he got to meet him, and Helio said, "You want to rock? You want to roll?" He said something like, "I'll kick your ass" or something like that. They were
man.
joking around, but he
Yeah,
was like ready to get out and roll right there, you know.
that's cool.
But yeah, you gotta learn to play the game. You can't you can't. It is an old man's game too,
Hmm. You
but
just gotta play it right. Hmm.
old man against old man. It's like I started lifting weights again this week because I'm
Oh,
just getting
good.
beat up too much.
Yeah,
I stopped all strength training about 2 years ago, and I said, you know, all I'm going to do is jujitsu. I'm just going to do it every day as much as I possibly
yeah.
can. And but everybody else is doing it too, and their strength training.
And their strength training. Yeah,
And I just feel like I'm getting slammed around, and I can't break grips, and there's all these certain things that are making my game weak. And I said, you know what? I just started strength training again. I did it,
yeah.
and today was my second day. Um, and I'm gonna keep on going. You know, I've kind of dedicated myself to it. So
That's cool, man.
we'll see.
Are you strength training at the gym? Because I know they have the fitness center and stuff.
Yeah,
Did they
at
bring
the
it to
gym.
Okay, okay.
I have to do it there. I won't do it anywhere else.
Yeah.
And I'm doing like football player workouts. You know,
Oh,
so
cool.
I'm only doing like 3 exercises a day. Like Tuesday was squats, uh, bench press, and bent rows, all barbells,
Hmm.
and 5 sets of 5. And so you try to go heavy. And then today was squats, military press, and deadlifts. And
So
then
all power.
yes, and then I start all over with it'll be the same thing again. It'll be bench or squats, bench. Was the last thing I did? Squats, bench, and oh, bent rows, yeah. And then the next day it's squats, military press, deadlift, and this is just those 5 exercises. You do squats every time,
Oh, that's cool.
and you alternate the other 2 exercises. So it's only 5 exercises, 3 exercises a day, 5 sets of 5. That's it.
Well, I think that's going to help you improve, definitely. You know, strength training will help you